Well, someone talked about the C9 Flair in the last game, but I'm not going to lie, this series give me Ric Flair because we're starting to heat up in this one. Now, I'm a bit confused about that one, but let's talk about draft for game number 3. That's the game number 2 draft. Obviously, a lot of switch-ups occurred.
I'm always confused for the record. It's just in varying levels. This one's like just slightly higher than average.
Joshi, I apologize for the fact that I'm aware, for some reason, somehow, some way, I am the normal one semi in this cast, but we've got J-Real and Nightmare doing whatever it's been between sound effects and this. But yeah, I'm like, please save us. Tell us about the draft a little bit, because these two are clearly going off the rails already.
It's all good. It's all good. It makes me feel right at home with all the rest of you broadcasters. But I'll be honest, this draft coming through from Sengoku doesn't feel like it was necessarily playing to a lot of their strengths coming out, right? You see the Jarvan immediately coming through as the B1 pick. And while this champion seems relatively strong and once had some decent plays early on, you're definitely looking at a situation where you're not getting the same kind of late game power out of this composition. You have no bridge to get there, right? When you have a single threat damage composition with the Jinx, you end up running into a lot of issues if that Jinx is going to be dove upon by the rest of DFM.
And it's important that you do kind of talk about that bridge as well, because we kind of saw Sengoku try and outplay their way into building like a makeshift bridge by saying, let's invade and just keep the Nocturne down. Maybe that'll work. And it didn't quite work out because maybe it'll work because they had bot pro and they could maybe do something, except it didn't really work out the way they wanted to. And DFM, I mean, they kind of fell into a little bit of a pitfall with their game 1 decision making around the L jungle pathing 2. So maybe they thought they could pick up another couple of kills. If you give up a couple of early kills, maybe that changes again. But they weren't able to get that kind of advantage. And then it did get to a point like where we said that one play around bot side jungle really just tore the game apart, but that could have happened at any given point.
Yeah, and there's an element here of DFM have multiple ways to play out the game with this comp, because you can 1-3-1, and they did. You can play the sort of like, I won't call it team fight per se, but you can play the snap pick before big team fights, and when you're positioning around, just saying like, blow up the Lulu and Jinx. You saw the Lich Bane come in. Lulu's dead. Okay, Jinx can't run. She's in the cage. She's dead as well. And now it's a 3v5, and you've lost your main damage threat.
But I think looking forward,
because it wasn't from an even state, you couldn't even play the 5v5s out to begin with in the first place. So it got really tricky.
But the question is, how is this going to affect the next game? Because again, we saw game 1, Sengoku got to play their style, and DFM had a good lead, but then they kind of just allowed Sengoku to do what they did best, and then Sengoku really punished them for that. If this series goes on with DFM drafting more like they did in this game, I'm very, very worried for them if DFM have multiple ways to force Sengoku away from clean 5v5s.
Yeah, and I have one question. I feel like in game 1, Jet was really stand out on that LeBlanc. Obviously got put onto the Ari. I know, Namira, you've played this champion once or twice. Do you feel like maybe there's some more agency that is needed than the Ari pick? Or do you feel like actually the pick is completely fine and it was just how they kind of had difficulties in the early game?
This is not a problem about what Jet is picking. His problem was like what's on the other side of the rift, because you sat there looking at all of these different things. You're rarely given a chance. You need to hold on to your ult for so many different things. You have to basically be a second peel tool for your AD carry. And it's more about what the enemy's picked, because you're not really in a position to do the carrying yourself just because what's on DFM's side.
Also, shout out on this one, the DFM actually tracked what was going on in the jungle a lot better this game. There weren't as many wards in deep. They were actually in control of the map a bit more. And I know this is something Joshi brought up in the green room, so to speak, in Discord. Before the games, we were saying, look, Jet gets a lot of isolated kills, gets a lot of isolated time with opponents. You were worried, right? That he wasn't going to get as much isolated time against DFM. And I kind of feel that was true this game.
Yeah. The one other thing I kind of want to touch on before we start looking at what we're going to see from here on out is, once again, Evi's getting counterpick in yet another game. And yet again, he picked something that's not really a very strong counterpick. The Camille going into the Gragas is something that is at best a skill matchup for the Camille, right? And it's really hard to find the kills onto Gragas because the explosive cast just knocks you out of the Hextech ultimatum. But he's winning them super hard anyway. It doesn't feel like it matters. He just finds these okay matchups and just blows them out of the water.
What this screams to me that he's been learning from a little-known player called Ari. I don't know if you've heard about him. He's one of my favorite players. But what Ari used to do back in 2020 on his old team of CJ, where he was the one person who could do anything really on his team, he would wait until that counter pick, and then he'd look at the entire enemy composition and say, I don't care about lane. How do I carry the team fights? I feel like that's what Ebby's been doing well in that last game anyway. Because you look at that lane as like, okay, Gragas kind of denies it. Whatever, I'll outplay the lane. See you in the team fights. And Camille did a lot of work later that game.
Great for the comp,
I don't mind that if they continue to have something which allows Ebby to impact the entire game, and he does manage to pull that off.
Well, we'll have to see what they do decide to draft once again. We're going to throw it over to our casters. Middle court, Master One, take us into game 3.
Woo!
Well, I'm on my own at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm still channeling the inner Ric Flair. The J-Roll threw us over. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean, Detonation FocusMe. You're still muted, mate.
Sorry. I was doing an impression of Honey that game because honestly, like it was kind of lights out for him. He wasn't really there, wasn't really able to do anything, couldn't be the big carry that Sengoku needed.
But he's my favorite player of the league.
I understand that, Lexi, but he is currently in a very, very rough spot. Targeted out by the draft of DFM in that previous game and didn't really have much to offer in those fights. So I want to see like the next level of the play. We've seen the Nocturne and Camille with the TF combo from DFM. Now, how does Sengoku change things up and make it a little bit better for him?
Well, I mean, the thing is, when you actually look more holistically to what both these two teams have played a lot of, I mean, Detonation FocusMe found a lot of success just by playing Poppy Jungle, right? Now we've got a Nocturne angle. I mean, granted, we already knew there was going to be a Nocturne if still wanted to, but that was just something they brought out, so that's something we can also do. Also, we've not just seen Yaharong playing just Veigar or Victor yet. Or Ryze even. Like, they're his most played champions. He's not even touched them so far. So DFM can still just go back to tried and true testing and just play front to back team fight, 5U, and just win because we're really good at that.
Yeah, they've been different. They've been different from a typical DFM. And that's worrying that you can sort of pull that out in a final on strategies that you haven't maybe been practicing as much over the course of the split and still look absolutely ridiculous on it.
Yeah, look better than what Rascal Jester's attempt was in Game 5 versus Sengoku. But as we're on to pick and ban phase, middle court, let's see what the adaptation... DFM, there's adaptation. Xayah banned alongside the Lee Sin, but for Sengoku... Tryndamere, is it going to be the run back Zeri? Oh, it's going to be the Karma? Okay, well, so Zeri will be the last one, I imagine.
Yeah, it has to be kind of terrifying in this matchup. I wonder, could be the Nocturne as well if Sengoku are particularly intimidated. That one, obviously, the Xayah is a very good pick into the Nocturne. Going into those Feather Flies means that the engage isn't quite as clean. If it's not taken off the board by Sengoku, DFM could be very, very keen to pick it up quite early in this draft.
Wow, that is a gauntlet just thrown down by Harp saying, I don't care what you do, we're just gonna... They could potentially run the Sodi run back. The only difficult thing about that is we are giving... Oh no, this is a complete bait from DFM, isn't it? They want Honey on the Jinx.
Yep, absolutely.
No.
Maybe setting up for a possible Nocturne pick a little bit later. Obviously, taking away the Tahm Kench as your first pick means that there's less safety.
Don't pick Aphelios.
No, it's a risky business.
It's a mobile ADC for a mobile ADC, but Jinx is just a strictly better one because she outranges the Aphelios. So now if Unipop... Like, DFM can opt into this now. Oh, I can't, man.
It's risky business. It's risky business. Still early, Lexi. Okay, Sengoku have not doomed their draft with a single pick.
No, we can still get a Thresh here and still have a crazy strong bot lane. I mean...
Nautilus, it's alright. It's kind of like Thresh.
Oh, okay. Are we pulling back the Renekton Nidalee? Nah, we're going to just go straight back for what worked so well last time. And hey, I mean, honestly, you could just open pick the Twisted Fate now if you're Yaharong. But they're not going to. They want to outrange, and that's what I mentioned earlier. They got the Jinx.
Sengoku, they do need a response because I think the Once's play in the early game versus Steel was actually very, very effective. He was constantly invading him on the Java and was able to take away that entire bot side and also deny the ability of Steel to actually get into Once's own top side and take away those camps, delaying that level 6 mark. But once it was hit, it was just too powerful. And Paz going to be picking up this Renekton in the top lane, wants something that could possibly, maybe stand in the way of Ebby, who is having a phenomenal series.
A little bit surprised we didn't see something like a Shyvana really coming out now from Once here. It's a very good angle actually for it, but they decide to go for this Renekton, which I have to imagine is being flexed at the moment between Paz and Jet. I mean, remember, Yaharong has had for a period of time played more Renekton than Ebi this split for the very first few weeks. As it said, though, it does look like it's probably going topside because of the Gnar and Camille bans.
Yeah, two of those champions that can really flex pressure against the Renekton in the 1v1s. Gnar can do it a little bit early with that range form, but late game, Camille is cutting through health bars with Sengoku. They could lock their jungler now, get something as a response to steal, leave mid lane counter pick available. And once is going to be reprising his role on the Viego.
Oh, what is going to be it? Yep, well, I mean, DFM weren't really dissuaded from doing so, and so Ebi did tweet out a few photos of some champions. This was one of them. The got locked in, and he looked good on it once before.
It's another one of those champions that can fight against the Renekton in the early game, and then that fear beyond death when we get to the later team fight, sniping out the target on Sengoku, executing, getting that massive multi-man fear off. You've got mid lane counter pick now for Jet. Is he going to go for something aggressive like an Akali, something that can make plays, or is he just going to default back to this Ahri? Lexi, it doesn't feel like Sengoku have answered a lot of the issues that DFM caused them in game 2.
I'm pretty sure this was a Veigar angle for Jet. So the cage would be a really good way of dissuading all of this kind of the Nocturne coming in, like the dive that they want to do. If you just play around Honey and you have the Veigar, you've got double carry there. We're kind of hitting the same issue that we saw in game number 2 from Sengoku, where they have a really good carry and they have maybe the best carry player in the LJL. The fact is, they're not really enabling him within these drafts. They're kind of going, hey, here's one of your hyper carries you're really good on. We'll figure something out around it. They don't even have the Lulu this time.
Yeah, maybe we are seeing more gameplay adaptation, because it was DFM that was sort of able to just chill in the early game. It was very, very slow for the first sort of 20 minutes, and then
yes, it was.
Camille was online, and the Nocturne was able to dive a bit more effectively. I wonder if Sengoku, with a couple more of these pick CC options, Spectral more on the Viego, the charm from Jet in the mid lane, and obviously everything that Nautilus does as a champion, maybe they can apply a bit more pressure in that early game and really take it to DFM in this scale game of the series.
I'm a little worried that realistically here, DFM can itemize pretty effectively from the damage profile coming out of Sengoku. Yes. It's a lot of AD from them here, and Jet... This is actually probably a Luden's angle. I know he won't go for it, but it's the angle for it. You want to be max damage Ahri here. And honestly, to a degree, maybe Paz should just go full tank. It's a weird spot. I mean, I hate the Renekton here. Ornn would have been just giga smurfing here, but I mean, that's what they decide to go for, and let's see how it works for them.
Sengoku maybe dropping the ball in draft, maybe not. Maybe they are bigger brained than us all.
Oh, chance.
It's going to have to be a strong response, though, because DFM looked on form in Game 2, and they've got a very, very similar composition this time around, just swapping out that Camille for the Urgot and the Jinx for the Aphelios, and a little bit changes in the bot lane too. But fundamentally, you've got that Nocturne TF combo. It is going to do exactly the same thing as in the previous game. Sengoku have already seen the playbook. Can they tear out some of those pages?
Well, there's options there, and we are seeing the spellbook again. I mean, if it ain't broke, why try and fix it? DFM, they basically got to play the two champions that fundamentally gave them a lot of their win in that last match. The Nocturne with this Twisted Fate, they played the map perfectly. Anytime they were a little bit concerned that something might be happening, just pop the Destiny. Let's just have a look and see what's happening. Blitzcrank Psalm 3 times in a row, and it's been this lopsided every single time. DFM clearly like, maybe they're bribing him. I don't know.
Can you bribe robots?
He is the LJL robot, and DFM are the most LJL winningest team ever.
That is true. Ebi going forward onto Paz, just bullying him out with the press the attack, actually opted into...
So rude.
By both top laners. And I mean, that's just like what Ebi loves to do. Stand between the enemy top laner and the wave, say, I might not be CSing this, but you are not getting any CS, you are not getting any experience. And Renekton, a champion that is meant to be thriving in the early game. And if it continues to be like this for Paz, he's not going to be thriving at any point.
I'm really surprised that that's the option. I don't feel like versus Urgot, especially in this early game, if really press the attack is the option. I mean, I still will back myself and say I don't think it was the pick here. But the fact that Renekton was picked here and they went for the press the attack, personally, I would have really preferred them to go for either more of a tankier rune, like Guardian, which is just Giga tuned at the moment, or to actually go for something like the Conqueror and just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to be in the attack for ages and ages and ages because this is what we have to do. You're going in with the Viego. Gone for the press attack, that's far more of the solo queue style Renekton. So we'll have to see if Sengoku are able to get this Renekton going on early game. It's pretty rough, but hey, once can come up and help.
It may be a bit more solo queue, or it may be to enable the Viego ganks a little bit more. Obviously, you get that exposed damage after you hit the 3 auto attacks, and you can apply that very, very quickly with the Ruthless Predator on Renekton, because that counts as 2 or 3 autos when it is fully empowered.
No, that is. And so weaving those in will be very important. And for the side of Sengoku, if they can get everything with once as well, with the stun, there's a lot that they can do. Can is the word. Execution is the game, though, and we'll have to see how that plays out. Something I want to mention just on this bot side, being very quiet from our 2 AD carries and supports. Normally, pretty early on, especially with level 3 and playing with a Nautilus, you want to be a bit aggressive. The problem is you've got an Aphelios. Unless you have the right guns, you can't really do much versus a Tahm Kench.
Yeah, Graviton's alright, but this Calibrum maybe not what Honey wants to opt in for. Infernum does provide a bit more damage, but does need to scale up as well. And this time it's Steel actually invading onto Once's jungle, trying to get a little bit of vision on the AD carriers. Harp is opting in for an engage. Steel is roaming down towards the bot side. Maybe he can just Spider-Man himself away, though.
Oh, Henny is so good, though, at finding that return damage. Just at the very end, it looked like it was very heavily DFM favored, but Honey just find that extra damage with the flamethrower at the very final few moments. Every time I watch it, it's like watching these. Honestly, both AD carries and bot lanes are poetry in motion. Like Jet's charms just there. Oh, could watch it for days. And frankly, Middlecop, we have, because we've been covering the LJL for just such a long time, you and me.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed summer. CGA did badly in playoffs.
Well, I mean,
they
made playoffs, though.
They made playoffs, and once again, they made playoffs this year, and then they lost, and I stopped enjoying playoffs. But it's been reignited by the 2 series that we have had on display recently, and this one is certainly delivering as it stands. And for the first time, I feel like in this entire series, it's actually Sengoku who are getting some of these laning advantages. Jet and Honey both fairly significantly up in terms of the CS.
Yep, but it's going to be 6 that's going to be the important number to watch, because that's when DFM's comp actually starts coming online, whereas Sengoku, 6 is nice, but it's not required. Wants a level advantage here, though.
Yeah, but
getting told to get out of his jungle.
Absolutely fine, just clearing this out. Wants just like chilling in Vape Nation, just trying to cause as many problems as he can for Steel. Once again, trying to delay that level 6 power spike, not quite as aggressively as in the previous game, but I think still the play that you need to go for against this Nocturne. Still maybe looking for a little bit of a mid lane gank. It's kind of ships in the night as Jet is stuck between 3 members of DFM, and he has nowhere to go. The flash forward from Heart, but the Spirit rushes. 1 more charge left. It's flash burned. It's ult burned. But Jet somehow stays alive.
Disengage, and ultimately at the end of the day, DFM come out on top. A lot less was thrown in from them, just people-wise, numbers-wise, and ultimately Udapon was able to just rather slowly and calmly farm his wave as it just kind of came in, crashed from the turret. And because Sengoku didn't have any vision, they didn't know where all the members were till it was too late. Harp isn't able to get the kill with the dive, but I mean, they forced a lot out from Jet, so let's see if they're able to make anything else happen over these next few minutes with those cooldowns down.
Yeah, crucially, Flash and Spirit Rush are not only defensive tools for Ari, they are aggressive tools. She's a champion that wants to be going forward, finding these charms onto the likes of Yaharong, onto the likes of Utapon. Not running the cleanse this time away, so if Harp isn't in range to get that Devour off to keep his AD carry alive, could be going down very, very quickly.
So, check in. even CS in the top lane. It's pretty good by Paz, frankly. Junglers, pretty even. Six is going to be dinging over probably in the next 30 seconds or so. Mid laners, Jet's definitely taken the advantage here. This is a no item, I have to imagine, similar to the previous game from Yaharong. No damage, rather. Twisted Fate. But you do need to still hit your item spikes to be pretty useful. Even in the bot lane, even in the supports. This is a super even competitive game. And Rift Herald is going to be coming up, so I have to imagine both these teams are going to either look to rotate around that, or if they're going to try and fight around this dragon that's been up for a few minutes now.
Yaharong was just cheating towards the bottom side of mid there, thinking about potentially roaming into bot lane as Steel and himself have both hit those level 6 marks, so the semi-global ultimates online. We'll have to track how he's able to use that proactively to get DFM some more of these early game advantages. It's been another tepid one. It's been another slow one. Neither of these teams wants to overstep. Neither of them wants to make a mistake that could cost them dearly. But we saw this in the previous game from Sengoku, and we know how it turned out. You can't go against DFM with a composition like this even into the mid game, because they will destroy you.
Yeah, and big sixes have come in now for DFM, so the side of Sengoku Gaming have to always be a little bit worried, and look at what's happened. The bot lane of Sengoku and the bot lane of DFM have both reset. They are pulling out, but one of these teams has global ultimate and one of them doesn't. Let's see who wins it.
Well, they're all going to be converging on the top side, so engage range maybe not as important as it otherwise would be. Paranoia thrown out, not going in quite yet, as its first blood actually picked up for Harp, and the Herald for DFM. Another Abyssal Vige for us, as that's actually Steel grabbing the kill. That's going to be a double kill for the jungler. And DFM pull the trigger around the Rift Herald and get a huge fight for it.
Yeah, get the Rift Herald, get the red buff. Let's just eat everything from Sengoku. Let them eat cake, says DFM, because we'll have everything. And this is what you mentioned and alluded to, Middlecart, just beforehand. Detonation FocusMe will gladly go to the mid game, go to the late game with a comp like this, because they've looked so good doing it. And this replay, I mean, mate, you called it perfectly. It was playing around this Nocturne ultimate, and then the moment they felt like they had the opportunity with the chain CC and everything and AoE damage, they just went for it and executed flawlessly. 3-0, and man, this team's so good sometimes.
I tell you what, that's a pretty high value Paranoia Destiny combo for the first usage.
Yep.
That is exactly what you want to be doing, and it's a bit faster paced from DFM this time around. Once we'll respond in a little bit later with that Drake pickup. Again, not an objective that these teams have really cared about too much in this series, but could be a potential win condition for Sengoku. We never know. Steel thinking about throwing down the Herald in top lane, spamming that recall, and we'll head back to base. Probably going to be picking up the Stride Breaker fairly soon, as that's the mythic he did opt towards in the previous game. Doesn't have the dash anymore. That was removed quite a while ago, but the slow and the catch potential that it provides is very significant.
I love that callback you just made, because normally when we saw the Nocturne coming out, he used to play it with the LeBlanc. But that is not the angle anymore. It's now just play it with Twisted Fate, and I really like this adaptation from the side of Detonation FocusMe. They're just like, hey, let's just find champions which combo well within a wider composition, and let's just see how this works. It's not something we see a lot in competitive league at the moment. Like, how many other regions are doing Nocturne Twisted Fate at the moment? I'm struggling to think of many teams.
Yeah, a little bit of innovation. Maybe it's something that some analysts, some coaches are looking at and going to whack out at MSI. LJL has had a couple of meta-defining picks and plays over the years.
Is that how you're defining Nah?
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I mean,
you can define the meta, positive or negative. Let's not really make the arguments there, but it's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing the hyper carry meta bot lane well before the global meta was, and then honestly, the fact is that's kind of bled into our region just having a stacked bot lane. Like, honestly, 6, 7, even to a point.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, V3. But 780 carries were all definitely having stellar performances, and our region in general is pretty stacked when it comes to 80 carries.
Oh, they're insane. Like the fact that we have had 3 sort of AD carries in this last round of Utapon, Honey, and Sol, and you can say, okay, these guys are all insane, but there's names like Hybrid. You really can't forget about him. Marble's been inconsistent, but when it's looked good, it's looked very, very good.
Sangchu has second most solo kills in a regular split as an AD carry.
That's quite nuts.
Yeah.
That's
I think it's either 10 or 11.
That's ridiculous on an AD carry. But again, that just sort of speaks to the confidence and the aggression and the skill that a lot of these guys play with. Still coming back to the top lane, revisiting it, throwing down the Rift Herald. Still a minute to go until those plates fall off. Once is here just to make sure that... oh, no. Oh, dear.
Oh, this is really awkward.
It's quite awkward. Oh, dear.
That's first one as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's first one.
DFM.
It's still fine, though. It's still fine, though. It's not like DFM fought for that Herald, lost the fight, and were like, yo, this is our consolation prize. They got an advantage through that fight, and yeah, you would have wanted the Herald charge to come off as well, but you're still in a, 3k gold advantage 14 minutes into the game.
Yeah, it's just really accelerating where Ebby is in this game is what you would love to do. Get that first mythic done and dusted because he opted into completing his boots first. I mean, as did Paz, but you'd rather get mythics out super quick, smart, and then you can start thinking, okay, Ebby, you can just solo probably pass for the rest of this game. And that is one thing that Sengoku are going to be on a timer for. Because unlike the previous match with the Camille, well, to a point with the Camille, but not to the same extent as the Urgot, we've seen Ebby's Urgot 2v1 mid to late game, and it's not even close sometimes. And frankly, outside of once, who really wants to have to go against Ebby mid to late game?
I'm not even sure if once wants to.
But you don't want to show your face because you're the jungler, so if you show your face, you're dead. But oh, yeah, wrong.
TP in response just to cool off the dive. But yeah, that's a proactive tool burnt by Jet. Super Mega Death Rocket. Just interrupting the recall of Paz. A little bit rude.
He's still standing there.
He's still standing there. Not too sure what's going on.
No, he's recall.
We'll start the recall. Hang on. It's like that.
Shop.
Hang on. I should be in base by now. Why can't I buy any of these items?
Utapon. Oh, this is why he's one of the greatest players Japan has ever seen in video games. Blanket statement. Yes, I'll call that out like that because he is that damn good. He's done it in multiple games, getting to the top rank in many leaderboards. And, just landing across the map, just Jinx ultimates, just casually. And, I mean, these stats, I think, sum up perfectly middle court how dominant Detonation FocusMe has been. Goal difference of 15. 4k on average.
That's nuts. That is the highest out of any team in the world. Period. There is no team playing in a Riot's accredited league, or a league that is associated with Riot, that goes into Riot Games competitions, that have a goal difference at 15 that is that significant. Maybe getting played onto, though. The Tom Kench has been called out and will be going down, but it's still DFM in the advantage. Maybe Utapon getting caught out, though. Honey walking forward, Gale forces, but can't get over the traps. And the Jinx stays alive for a little bit longer.
I'm really glad that came in, but, look at this! During the... Wait, is this during the regular season? Chris, what...
During the regular season.
Is this... Oh, this is DFM versus Sengoku, I believe, and this is DFM's stats when they played against Sengoku as they go for another dive.
Oh, Honey, flashes away, but you're not getting out of this one, buddy.
Oh.
Utapon with a kill, and that's the combo that we were talking about. Don't even need it with the TF. That paranoia is good enough.
But I want to just go back to this graphic once again, because that was lovely done by DFM. In their previous series, in their best of series, normally 5k, almost 5k ahead. Sengoku definitely don't allow that. If you just look at the gold lead at the moment. Yes, though, Detonation FocusMe have had definitely a pretty decent advantage with First Bloods. They've got 2 out of the 3, so no longer 100%. Their first tower rate, though, has been pretty solid, and they've been able to keep that, I believe. But first to 3 is really where you want to kind of understand it, because it just shows the momentum that Detonation FocusMe are typically able to do.
That's the thing. First tower is an alright statistic, but it can be kind of misleading because maybe you're engaged in objectives trades that actually favour the opposing team. But first to 3 towers, that is indicative of your ability to snowball your advantages to keep the game going. We did just see Rift Herald picked up there. And chat, I kind of want to ask you, does this one actually hit a tower?
We're getting yays we getting yeps or no's? I don't know. Are we getting sad face no's, or are we getting yes faces, or I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm interested. But as we have a look at the gold, there is a slight disparity starting to come out between these two teams now. And the one I want to highlight is 500 gold lead currently on Utapon. That's not a huge one, but it's micro small edges where you start getting a few hundred gold ahead of the the enemy AD carry. That's when you start hitting that second, third, more likely item spike. Potentially a team fight ahead of the other AD carry, and that's where it will make a difference.
Oh, Jet is getting played onto here. This will dive forward from Harp. Steel was waiting in the wings with the Paranoia as well, but DFM choose not to pull the trigger. They are rotating all 5 members towards this mid lane, and I think this Herald is going to be getting a charge, and it might just secure the tower as well. No wave to play with, and Sengoku also on the collapse.
Yeah, DFM had that Herald summoning, but they didn't quite stack it up with all of them joining together at the same time, so it didn't work brilliantly, but hey, the theory was still at least there, and they did get the crash. So all of you that said yes in chat, well done.
I wasn't looking at chat. I don't know if anyone actually said yes in chat.
I have no idea, mate. Me too.
No idea.
I'm kind of we're both commentating over this game, so
yeah, I'm not watching this game on Twitch right now. That is true, unfortunately. Other people are though. And I think they're enjoying it. I hope they're enjoying it. Because it has been a bit of a banger. And despite the gold lead that DFM have built for themselves.
Yeah, 4K.
4K. Looking at those dragons, Lexi. Bit more in Sengoku's favor. Yaharong locking in the gold card and able to CC chain Jet and get rid of that aggression, as it's actually Paz being played onto now by Steel. Forces the flash away from the Sengoku top laner, and mid lane tower has been secured. Destiny also being used by Yaharong here.
A little bit surprising to use it beforehand, before this dragon is going to be coming up. Obviously, in about a minute, they're probably not going to have that cooldown. They will have the Paranoia, thankfully, by that time. But a little bit surprising. My assumption is they wanted to see if Yaharong was actually going to be collapsed on, because in all fairness, like 3 of the members of Sengoku just weren't on the map or weren't on any vision, and they had actually just reset and they were actually coming back out their base. So I can kind of see the theory crafting. Sengoku, though, backing at the right time. Honey isn't, though. This dragon, if Detonation FocusMe prep for it as it spawns, he's going to be away from the team fight.
Yeah, but as it stands, it's actually NTN once pairing up, securing vision in the river, taking out that control within the pixel, throwing 1 over the wall to spot out DFM as they make their ingresses towards the pit. Drake, Cloud Soul on the Rift. Not quite as exciting as some of the other ones that we've had over the course of the split. But if Sengoku can get that, they will be happy nonetheless. 5 seconds until it spawns. It's basically on the Rift at this point, and Ebby is in the top side. Does have access to that teleport if DFM want to fight for this.
They absolutely should. But that fear just lands on NT, and then he buffered it. It almost looked like with like a Hexa flash or his Q, which was kind of cool to see. Ebby is TPing in after just prepping that wave top.
Paranoia thrown out, guard card thrown down, the damage into NT! He's got nowhere to know. Harp finds the engage as it's the fear beyond death onto Honey. That was sweet from Ebby.
Oh, the knock-up as well from Harp there was glorious to watch. DFM supremacy. I'm all here for it. While I'm a Honey worshipper, that was gorgeous by Detonation FocusMe, and they're looking for more objectives. They got the jungler so they can take this Baron middle cop.
Yeah, 3 dev Sengoku, only the solo lanes currently on Summoner's Rift, and with Jet running from platform and Paz going to collect a bot lane wave. I think there is a general recognition that this Baron is gone. Sengoku, they needed to go for this. They needed the pressure that Cloud Soul point can provide, but DFM executed once again excellently.
I mean, part of the issue here is that once got taken down so low, but then it's this knock up onto Honey, and the whole team just immediately try and use any and all damage. That fear beyond death, because he got taken so low, does the execute, and Honey didn't get to do much of anything. He even used his cleanse there, but he didn't have his flash up.
he was locked in the Q animation. He was mid-cast, and that meant that Harp could just catch him with the edge of the Abyssal Dive. It really is these millimeters, these single unit plays that can be so impactful, and Sengoku have overstepped in the top lane once, isn't going to be able to escape, and NT is going to suffer a similar fate. Guys, you stood up strong in game 1. You showed tenacity in the best of 5 versus Rascal Jester. You are better than this, Sengoku.
That's a little bit disappointing, but sometimes the wheels do fall off, and you've got to just look to next game. I think that's where Sengoku should feel right now. It's not over. The fat lady is not singing. She is definitely prepping her voice, though, bless her. Or maybe it's Tom Kench, as he is the devil of temptation, really, in the Legends of Runeterra lore, from my understanding. So maybe he's singing a rather jaunty southern tune at this moment in time, because Sengoku, it's looking a little dire for you.
Awful indeed, as the slow connects onto NT, and that is
no!
his flash gone. Another ultimate, the Fear Beyond Death, onto 2, as Ebby is actually taken low, but eaten up by Heart to keep him alive. He's so good, man. Honey, Gale forcing forward. He wants to carry, but he can't do it. The gold card, the stun, the death, the kill for Utapon. And I don't think we're even going to reach 25 minutes, as DFM are going to push through for the win.
They've got to make sure they get that average game time back down against Sengoku Gaming, Middlecott. That's why.
Yeah, Paranoia onto the fountain, shut down onto Steel, as NT is back on the Rift. Low health bars actually for DFM, and Jet, if he's able to find a single kill, can just reset through. So, the game is not over yet, but it is in a horrible spot for Sengoku. Paz has the TP when he respawns, but there's nothing for him to TP to.
No, there's not. This is fantastically, obviously, all of this is brilliantly done. Harp is honestly the player to watch throughout all of this, because Ebby tanks turret, gets charmed, immediately tries to do the Abyssal Dive, and then he just eats Ebby immediately, as you mentioned in the cast. So Ebby wasn't tanking anymore with that shield as well, survives through, and that gold card from Yaharong with the flash as well to make sure. Fantastically done. Now, DFM, we don't need a dive, and that was a little bit of a boo-boo decision they decided to make. I think they could have probably got the 2 towers and then maybe considered if they want to stay or not. The Paranoia didn't have to get used to actually go on to Jet, so that kind of worked for Sengoku a little bit, but breathing room with 12k gold down, virtually, in a way. 11k at this moment in time after a 4k Baron power play. This is feeling a bit over and done unless we can find multiple, I don't know,
disconnections?
Well, the game needs to go on for another 20 minutes at least for Sengoku, I think. That's step 1. I don't know how they get there, but they'll figure it out.
I'm not sure they will, Lexi, because DFM have kind of turned up to play here in game 2 and game 3. A little bit of potentially anger at how poorly game 1 went for them, but they are on form. This is what we expected. This is why so many of us predicted a 3-0 on the desk. Utapon doesn't even get taken to half HP by the Moonlight Vision, and will be able to heal up with that Legends Bloodline as well. Top lane tower obviously gone. Paz collecting in the mid. Super Mega Death Rocket fired at, as Jet is actually going to be the target, but it's Heart being played onto. He's taken out, and maybe there's a reset here for Sengoku. Maybe there's something for the Viego to find, but of course not. Steel with the Paranoia into the backline. Yaharong's there as well. Paz turning up with the Dominus, trying to scare them away, but that Crocodile is looking like a lizard at the moment. He can't do anything.
Yeah, I think that's a little gecko from the Geico commercials, Middlecott. I'll be real with you there.
And that Gecko is not a formidable opponent, but DFM well and truly are still overstepping, but DFM could just focus down the Nexus. Utapon throwing out the autos, and game 3 goes to DFM.
26-22 will be the final time, I believe, for that match for DetonatioN FocusMe, and more return to form for them. Looked a lot cleaner, a lot more comfortable in that game. But Middlecott, I must ask you on this desk with us, I wonder if we're going to see anything else from DFM, because we've seen them do this stuff before where they go, I'm just going to keep playing the same thing till you stop me from doing so. They didn't want to do it game 1, so they brought it out game 2 and 3. Sengoku, what's your response?
It's going to be a tough one.
I don't know, mate. What do you think?
I think it's become abundantly clear that you cannot play against Nocturne. I think it has to be hitting the ban table at that point because it just warps the game so much, and you don't have another opportunity to experiment. You are match point down now, Sengoku.
I want to just come to you then. I'm going to take just a few more seconds away from the desk. Because what did they ban instead then, Middle Cop? Because Caitlyn has been a must ban, and it seems like an oppressive pick from Utapon. And also outranges all of Honey's stuff, so that's difficult.
Lexi, I'm not saying that there are right answers. At this point, it's just picking the least bad option for you, and maybe that's going to be enough to...
You think giving Harp Karma's the least bad option?
It's all bad. It's all bad, Lexi. It's all upsetting. But Sengoku will hopefully recover for the sake of Game 5 potential in this series. We're going to be jumping to a short break, and then the Analyst desk going to be breaking down how DFM put themselves on match point.
Well, DFM have definitely woken up. They are bringing the heat ready and firing off. And to be fair, if I was Sengoku, I'd maybe a bit paranoid that this could be the last game they play, because Nocturne is really storming up. And Namera, I know you've got a lot of things to say about this draft.
So many things, because just to give you a bit of a peer behind the curtain, last year around MSI, I had a couple of chances to talk to Kazu, because he actually speaks English, and me being painfully monolingual, that's actually quite useful for me that he speaks my language. But I had a chat to him about some of the drafts that he did last year, and I think some things that he did last year are quite prevalent in what we see in this draft too. What DFM does when they are drafting is often they read the character of the enemy team rather than the meta. What you can see with this draft as it comes through is that there's a first pick Tahm Kench, the Zaya's banned away. And then once you have that, you look at Sengoku, how they've been winning recently has been, does Honey have a way to peel back? Does he have enough peel to do that? And can Jet also help in that regard as well? Once you remove these big options in terms of the Tahm Kench, in terms of the Zaya, that stops them from playing through that win condition. I think what Kazu has done is really intelligent, specifically against Sengoku. They've read how they win and say, I don't care about the meta, I don't care what we're giving up in the first rotation. These are the picks which matter most to you, and I think we can see that in this draft, and we can see, of course, how it worked out.
Yeah, well, it's definitely working out pretty well for them. That was a hugely fast game. I think Middlecourt was saying something like this could be their fastest game in playoffs. We'll have to see if we can get a double check on that.
Game against Sengoku Gaming this season is what it's been. So
which is also includes,
but it's still pretty impressive.
They've only include playoffs.
So they've only played against Sengoku in playoffs. So it's just their fastest win versus that, you know? And then also the 3 games outside of playoffs too.
Yeah, and there were some big plays, right? Like we have to talk about the Herald that came through because, well, that's where it all began.
Yeah. I feel like when we're looking at this play, the big thing that we're going to have to look at is, once again, it feels like DFM have all the triggers and they're pulling them, and Sengoku just aren't really sure what to be doing. When you get all the information on the map by turning off the lights for your opponents and turning them on for yourself, it feels really difficult for Sengoku to do anything. And as I watch this back, I feel like at least one of NT or Jet needs to start throwing some crowd control at Yalharong. He can't be allowed to just walk up like that. And that's what we're looking at from Sengoku. They're just letting DFM dictate the pace of the game. And when you're doing that with Nocturne TF, you're always going to be ahead when you get to decide what plays you want to go for.
And I think for me, the biggest extra factor on top of this is the fact that Sengoku have the Renekton. And I have liked Renekton at certain points. Actually, game 3 of the Juggernaut match, DFM picked this against Sengoku, and they smashed them at that Herald fight. That is where Renekton is strongest. And you can see how Paz is actually starting to, like, his body language in that clip. He's trying to turn off, try and go with a full rage bar onto one carry, blow them up. This is the strongest point Renekton will ever be in this game. They completely flub it. He tanks Herald too long. He eats 3 ultimates to the face, doesn't get to do a single thing in that fight. Sengoku misuse this already quite controversial champion, and they just lose their window of power. It's a really sad situation for them.
I mean, to go back to the draft, well, that was the Urgot counter pick into it as well. So he was behind in lane quite a lot, lost a lot of plates. Then on top of that, you've got this comp, you've got Harp on this Tahm Kench, which he's so comfortable on. Well, when you turn the lights out, it means the Abyssal Dive, you don't see the indicator. So it's a completely blind indicator. You don't get to see where that's coming up. And the amount of times Honey had nowhere to go was just unreal. And we've already seen that Sengoku Gaming are a very different beast when Honey doesn't get to be the star carry or doesn't get to be one of the star carries. And that's kind of proven true. These last couple of games, DFM have thrown out a couple of curveballs in some ways, and I've yet to see Sengoku meaningfully answer.
Yeah, people have been talking about new language for League of Legends. We recently were talking about this behind the scenes. There's a flank angle, which is a flangle. We got a bit of a clip for that one because Nocturne just allows all of these flangles to occur and initialize. I know you have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, no, this is not flank. It's a flanken. Get it right.
Yeah, so this is a flank in the sense that Nocturne does not give a damn about whether you have a flank angle or not, because he gets to press R and run at you from wherever, just jetting down at the skies like a herald from God or whatever. And you can see it here. This is one of those ones where I mentioned that Abyssal Dive as well. They dive in, NT is deleted straight away, and then flash Abyssal Dive means Honey has nowhere to go. And you have nothing to do. You get everything layered up afterwards, and there's no chance for resets. It's a runaway angle, honestly, from Jet. You don't get to reset, you don't get to go in, and that's just lights out. No puns intended.
No, and then, you know, the dive there, the dangle is the dive angle. So there we go. Nice, the Abyssal Dive into that.
See,
that's all the analysis I've got there.
Normally, Tahm Kench has to look for the flank dive angle, the flanned angle, right? But this time, you don't need to do the flanking part of it.
It's a bit grim. It's a grim flanned angle.
Especially for Honey.
Definitely some new League of Legends language. I am also monolinguistic, so this is going to be a new one for me to have to pick up over the next few days. But let's get into some more discussions about Ebby, because we talked about how important he's going to be in this series, but it's just been so painfully obvious how good he is.
And before coming into this series, we knew Ebby was goddamn good. You look at the amount of solo kills he has. He has more than doubled Jet, who's on the other side, who was the first all-pro mid laner, the only person who kind of beat DFM to that point in terms of solo kills. Ebby in this series has, kind of as we expected, really taken over. And it doesn't matter if he's picking full lane. He gets counterpick quite often, as Joshi has said, but the way that I think that he's been playing out so far has been playing for the whole team and saying, I can play into this enemy team comp, and you can see what happens when he is picking a champion like that Urgot in that last game, where it's not just picking into the enemy team comp, but also into the lane. That's like the golden connection between the both of them, and Ebby just gets to show off, and this player is having a hell of a series and a hell of a split for this tenured career.
Absolutely. I mean, like, when you can pick something like Camille into the ground we saw the last game, and Joshi called it out, it's not the best lane matchup per se, but it's really good for your team comp, right? When you've got the TF and the Nocturne, and you can blow up the Lulu and the Jinx, fantastic stuff. And because Ebby's such a class player, he can still come out on top in that lane. Then you get games like this, where it's like, aha, I've got the Urgot, what are you going to do now? And that Renekton just does not get to play the game. Ebby literally becomes a second jungler for parts of that game, where he's invading on red buffs, forcing once out of his own jungle. They're getting like Paz to flash ult away from his tier 2 in topside with just 2 members. Like, that's the kind of level of pressure and level of playstyle variety, again, from this guy who can pick whatever champion he wants into whatever matchup he wants for the team comp and play side lane, play invade, play team fight. Guy's a monster.
Yeah, and we looked at his kind of deck of champions, we saw the power levels, we saw the KDAs, but man's just got pot of greed. He's just drawing more and more each time we watch him play, now playing the Urgot. Joshi, is there anything this guy can't play?
You know that card is banned in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Right?
That's the big question that we always have, is what can't Evie do? And at this point, it feels like he's just really ready to go for almost anything. And when you're getting these counter picks, it opens up all kinds of things. He's got I believe, the actual highest number of unique picks in Japanese top laners, and that's not something we can usually say for this guy. So I'm continuing to be excited by this player as we start looking towards MSI. It's not a foregone conclusion just quite yet, but if Game 4 is going to look like Games 2 and 3, it might as well be.
Yeah, well, we're going to be going to a short break, but don't worry, we do have more. When we come back, we're ready for Game 4.